Wilson. I work for an organization called Caregivers Nova Scotia, and I'm really happy to be here and to have the invite from Brain Injury Canada. So, the topic that I chose for today is what I've titled Reaction Hacks. These are practices, they're just little short beginning practices that can help us to respond rather than react. So I'd like to start by just doing a land acknowledgement. I would like to take this time to acknowledge that I live and work in the Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and the present homelands and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. The territory is covered by peace and friendship treaties signed in 1700, and we are all treaty people. I'd like to thank the Mi'kmaq for the stewardship of the land from time immemorial. I continue to learn about land acknowledgement and the importance and just the connection with the land. And so I'd like to take a moment and invite you all to just acknowledge where you are at. And I'd like to just lead you through a moment to help you just settle into that. So if you start by just letting your eyes fall on something that they like to rest on, maybe a picture, a color, and just let your eyes rest. And I'm assuming that most of you are sitting. So I invite you to just acknowledge and to notice where your chair is supporting you. Could be your back, underneath your thighs. And just receive that support. And just follow your breath. And bring your attention to your feet. You may wiggle your toes. And just feel the four corners of your feet on the floor. And I invite you to connect a little deeper. And imagine the earth underneath your floor. Your feet connecting with the earth. And just receive that support. Thank you. So throughout the first half of this presentation I'm going to have a few slides and talk a little bit. And then the second half of the presentation is going to be some quick exercises to just help resource ourselves and to help us to feel some peace and being able to respond as opposed to being triggered and react. So if I invite you right now, if you would like to follow along with some of those quick exercises, I'll invite you to pause right now. And if you would get yourself a piece of paper and a pen of some sort, and if you have a golf ball handy or a dryer ball or any kind of something that can roll like that, I invite you to go get that and come back and we'll continue on. So as I said, I'm from an organization called Caregivers Nova Scotia. And as you can see from the picture of our teacup with the hummingbird on it, we've chosen the hummingbird as our symbol because the hummingbird performs impossible feats. It's such a tiny bird and flies such incredible distances. It works at lightning speed. And it survives extremes. And the hummingbird often flies solo, just as caregivers do. So we're really lucky. We have support coordinators in all areas of the province. And we support family and friend unpaid caregivers caregivers of any sort. Could be caring for a child, a parent, sibling, a neighbor, and it's not disease specific in any way. Could be somebody who has cancer, somebody who has dementia, somebody who's living with mental illness, things like that. We support people through helping them navigate the health system. We support them through workshops and finding other resources in their community that might lighten their load. We have also support groups that we have, and we are funded by the Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care. We're not employees of, but we are funded by, which we're very fortunate to have. And we are a nonprofit organization. And myself and all my colleagues, one of the things that we often hear in support groups is that, oh, I was impatient and I reacted out of frustration and I just, snapped at them and I feel so guilty. We hear that a lot, and caregivers can be, very hard on themselves that they need to do more, do better, things like that. But this is one common one that we hear a lot, and so this is one of the reasons why I chose to try to do something of this sort, so that we can help alleviate some of that guilt feeling, so that you can feel less stress within your lives and all you do. And so because you'll have these little tools that I hope that you're going to try on and maybe bring into a practice, and that you'll be able to respond more often than just react. As we know, there's going to always be external circumstances that bug us, that we have no control over. And when you can't control what's happening, challenge yourself to control how you respond to what's happening, because that really is where your power is. It's been said that life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. So throughout our time together, I'd like you to keep a few things in mind. One is, it's the human condition to react. We all react rather than respond sometimes. We all have moments of, oh, I wish I hadn't have said that, or hadn't done that, things like that. So it's not unique, it's the human condition. To me, this is all about self-compassion. And so that's what I'd like you to try to keep in mind and go in with the intention of that you're doing something for yourself, to have self-compassion towards yourself. As you know, sometimes people plug into us. They need to plug into us. If you've ever been in a room and thought, oh, geez, I just feel so comfortable and relaxed around that person. People will be doing the same to you at times. And so this is not just about you and your self-compassion. Your self-compassion will be gifted out to the world, because it will also help you put more compassion into the world around you. So this is not a selfish thing to do these kind things for yourself. This is, it just spreads compassion further and further. I'll encourage you to stay curious. So if you decide to try on some of these things, and keep trying them on, and keep curious about it, and see, do your own investigating about whether it's helpful to you or not, and just stay curious about it all. And I'd just like everybody to remember that all you do is always good enough. So I'd like to introduce the idea of the window of tolerance. Basically, it's around self-regulation. And if you think, of a window, this is where we modulate throughout this upper and lower level all day long. So, getting ready to present to you today, I went up a little bit. and probably after this, I'm going to relax and be down here a little bit. So we just do this all day long. There's stresses throughout the day, but many of them are good stresses. They help us continue and get things done that we need to do and feel accomplished and things like that. But there's often times when we are being pushed out of our upper level, and we're unable to respond then because we're into hyperarousal, which is our fight flight within our nervous system, or we are pushed down into, because of the compound stresses we've been experiencing or different life circumstances that are out of control. And that would be, again, we won't be able to respond. We will only be able to react, and we may react with a freeze, which could feel like depression. It could be just not being motivated, feeling like everything is overwhelming and I can't get it done. I'm just going to ignore it. It could be watching Netflix for 3 hours. So when you are experiencing those times, I'm hoping that this image might just help people realize that, all right, there's something maybe I could try and do for myself so that I can stay within, as much as possible, I can stay within this window of tolerance. I'd also like to suggest that we're all living a little bit more contracted right now rather than expansive. So our window of tolerance is even probably a little bit narrower. With the pandemic, everything that our communities have been going through for the last couple of years, the violence we've been seeing, all the things that have been occurring around us, our triggers, I believe, are a little bit closer to the surface. So I just would like to acknowledge that. And, okay. So what these little tools, what I'm hoping that they will do for you is just to help you notice things and to watch yourselves, and you're just becoming more aware and connected with yourself. Our body is our notifiers, like the ding on your phone. Well, our bodies ding us a lot of the time. And sometimes we just ignore it, or we have it on do not disturb, or whatever it is. So I'm hoping that it will help you connect and to recognize and hear your notification from your body a little bit sooner. It's really important that we acknowledge all our feelings. And so that I'm hoping these practices will help you acknowledge that what you're feeling is okay. And sometimes it's no wonder I'm feeling that. When you explore it a bit more, and just by acknowledging it, our feelings are visitors. We can entertain them for a moment. We can be curious about them. They will leave. And once they leave, it makes room for new feelings to come in. So I have a sticker on my fridge that says, what we resist persists. And I feel that's very true with our feelings. So if I'm feeling angry about something and I just keep resisting it, it's going to keep persisting, and my tolerance window is not going to be as wide as it could be. We all have triggers, and depending on how we were raised or how we were treated in school, or there's different triggers that we have received because of our life stories. You may become a little curious after exploring or thinking about these things a bit, to explore those triggers a bit more. Some of them most likely kept you safe and secure feeling, but they may not be as useful to you now. So it may be a different circumstance, but your body is being triggered in the same way as the old story. So that might be something you want to further explore later on. So this is all about just investigating and being curious and doing it without judgment, shame, blame, or labeling. So that's what I'd really like to encourage everybody to just, to keep those things in mind, that we're We're just going to play around with a couple of things and see what fits. So I invite you to take your golf ball, and I'd like you to start with your non-dominant foot. So if you're right-handed, you would start with your left foot. So if you put it under your non-dominant foot, and you can do this standing or sitting. Standing, often it's easier to put a little more pressure on your foot. If you like that, put as little or as much pressure on your foot. And you're just going to roll that ball underneath your foot and massage your foot. Get right under your toes, down the side of your foot, under your heels. Just give it a good massage. Might be noticing already that, geez, my foot's a little tight. That's what I often notice. Or, oh, under my toes is really tight. And then just take that foot off and put both of your feet down beside each other. Bring your attention back down to your feet. And notice, does one foot feel different than the other? So for me, the foot that I was massaging is a little more tingly feeling. Feels a little flatter to the floor. So that's what you're doing. You're just helping yourself get into your body a little bit more and just taking notice. So give your other foot a nice massage now because it's a little jealous. So that's one that you can practice. I know people who have them in their office, and they do this before they're going into a meeting, or if they're starting to get frustrated by whatever the work is in front of them, they just take a moment's break and do that. So you might give yourself, breaks within the day, or once a day in the middle of the day, whatever it is. It might be once a week that you do this, or it might be when you just notice that your shoulders are in your ears and that the golf ball comes to mind. So you take that out, sit in the sun, start rolling on your feet. So part of that, when we were doing the land acknowledgement, and I brought you through connecting with the earth a little bit more, for me, that is like, I should say up front too, that I use all these tools for myself. That's what I'm bringing you, is the tools that I actually use for myself. And but I also take parts of it and I practice it in all kinds of places. So I might just be feeling my feet and really feeling my feet connect to the floor and things. And I will do that in lines if I'm standing, waiting in line at the bank, or the grocery store, or wherever. And so these are things that you can also do that nobody else is going to notice. So it might be that you're starting to feel yourself, ramp up a little bit. And so that you just think, okay, I'm going to just pay attention to my feet here for a minute. But I have been trying to practice some of these things when I'm feeling kind of good, so that they can come to me easier when I'm not when I'm getting to the upper or lower ends of my window of tolerance. Next thing that I would like us to try is, you can get that piece of paper that I asked you to get. So knowing our triggers and knowing can be really helpful, but even if we're not really sure of what our trigger is, but we are starting to notice our body notifier, our body talking to us with more ease and quicker, then we can kind of cut that off before it gets too far away from us. So I really notice it in my hands, that if I'm starting to get really frustrated or aggravated, impatient by something, I notice that my hands get tighter. Sometimes they ball up. That's when I'm really angry. So I'm just going to invite you to take your hands and just really give them a really nice stretch. Like starfish. So with that stretch, I just am already feeling a little different. And if you take your piece of paper and just trace your hand, start with that. So you've got this. And for each finger, I want you to think about your 5 senses. So this will be so you have tasting, hearing, touching, smelling. And then I'd like you to take a moment and just think about some of the things that really appease your senses, that make you feel really like, kind of moment. So for hearing, for me, when I hear cardinals sing, it captures my attention straight away, and it gives me that moment. So I would be writing cardinal singing in one of my fingers and on my hearing finger. Tasting, it might be raisins for me, or creme caramel. I like them both. For touching, this is, I used to live with my cat. She's gone now, but I loved the feel of petting my cat. Smelling, I love the smell of lilacs when they're first coming out. So that might be what I put there. And for seeing, in that land acknowledgement, the image that was there is of Blomidon, which is very close to my home and which I can see when I walk down the street. And that gives me great comfort in that moment. So I'd like you to fill in your hand with those types of things. And hopefully you've done some of that now. Now you might take this afterwards and make it a really nice thing. If you like to draw, if you like colors, you might crack out the colored pencils and do something. But I have had this up on my fridge. My fridge is one of my go-to places, I guess. But I have this up on my fridge. And when I am starting to feel a little, either anxious or nervous, I can go to I look at my hand and it reminds me. And again, I just take a moment and imagine those things that appease my senses. And it just brings me into a little bit of a deeper breath, a little quieter nervous system. Our senses are really smart in very direct ways into relaxing ourselves. So you might think of other things that are really quick and easy, useful things for you. Maybe it could be music. So if you're feeling, like you're being pushed down out of your low part of your window of tolerance, that you might put on some really uplifting, moving music. Or it might be the other way, that if you're feeling really anxious, nervous, that you might put something more calming on. You might cook. If smell, you might, so there's using our senses and is an easy way to connect back in and be more present to the moment that will help us. So when I asked you to take a moment when we were doing the land acknowledgement to follow your eyes and let them rest on something, that is something else you can do, and just notice if your body starts to relax. So our senses are very smart. They can lead us and be really helpful to us. So the other thing with the hand that we can do, and you can do this anywhere. I'm going to do this here on my chest, but I would normally, if I was out in public or with somebody that I didn't necessarily want them to know that I was using one of my resourcing tools, I would probably do it more towards my belly. But you can take your hand and you're just going up and down your fingers and breathing. So it's an in breath and an out breath. In breath and out breath. So I find that I can use this and do this very nonchalantly, that other people aren't seeing it. You know, we've heard it probably 100 times. Take a breath, count to 10. Well, this is one that services me because it's also about touch, which it's the touch and the breath, and it just helps me connect a little bit faster. And it also helps me that if I want to slow my breathing a bit, then I start to just slow my finger rotation around my hand a little bit, and my breath tends to follow. So that's another one that you could use. So there's another thing that I'll invite you to do, so if I hear like a really hard story or a shocking story or see something shocking, without thinking about it, it's an automatic reaction. I do this, and it's that heart protection, is what I'm imagining it is, I guess. But so that's an automatic reaction. But I invite you just to put one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly. And you can just notice how you're breathing. Don't have to change it, just notice it. You may notice that it's slowing down on its own. You can feel the warmth of your hands and the nurturing you're giving yourself. So this is another one that I can do when I'm starting to feel a little anxious or feeling that sadness is overwhelming me. Helps me be honest with my feelings. So this is another one you might try. So the other thing that I have been doing for myself, and a lot of caregivers that I support have been doing, that has been very helpful, is just expanding on gratitude. So I try to do gratitude in the morning and before I sleep. And when I first started, trying to do gratitudes, it was like, I don't know what to, think, I don't know what to be grateful for. And I had somebody who gave me the good advice one day and just said, if you didn't have it tomorrow, that might be the thing you're grateful for. So coffee was my first one. It was like, I am really grateful for coffee. I'm grateful for all those coffee bean farmers. And, so that's helped me kickstart my gratitudes. And it was funny because coffee was before, the toilet, before indoor flushing, having water accessible. But I guess I need the water to make the coffee. So that might be something that you do. I've had caregivers do it in a number of ways, but one caregiver, or actually I'll tell you two stories. One caregiver wanted a buddy so that she would stay committed to it. So a friend and she texted a gratitude each day to each other. And so that kept them on track. And another caregiver used to write her gratitude down and put it in a jar. And that was really helpful to her because she also got to see the jar fill up, which that really helped her. And I have another caregiver who she and her loved one each night, that's how they end their day. They go into a separate room, they share their gratitudes of the day, and then they go to bed. So there are various ways you can do gratitude, but it is a helpful practice. For me, I've experienced it. Other people have told me the help that how it's helped them. Our minds are, like negatives are like Velcro. They stick around and they keep showing up and showing up, it seems. And the positive things it's like Teflon. They slide off. And, we're kind of hardwired that way. It helps us in survival. We don't want to repeat things that are, hurting us. So that has some sense to it. So we need to keep those neural pathways going of being able to access our gratitudes and acknowledge them and see them more quickly. So that might be something you do. So the last thing I'd like to introduce to you today, well, actually, I'll just show you one other thing. I also use mandalas, and I like to color, and that really grounds me very quickly. You can find mandalas free on your computer all over and print them off. But I really enjoy that practice, that repetition of not having to think about it, just choosing colors. So that might be something as well. But I'd like to end with a heart breathing. So just relax for a minute and just notice your breath. And focus your attention on your heart area. And just keep breathing. Focusing on that heart area. Might deepen your breath a bit more. Having it go a couple seconds more. Focusing on your heart area. I'd like you to think and imagine that you're breathing slowly through your heart. The in-breath is going into your heart and out through the heart. And if you take a moment in your life, a memory, an image, might have been the first time you held your child, or a precious pet, or a special place. And as you're focusing your attention on your heart area, breathing through your heart, breathe that image right into your heart. Holding that image in your heart as you continue to breathe through your heart. So I hope you found some kind of takeaway from today. One other thing I would like to share with you was that I was at a mindfulness course one time, and my best takeaway from it was it was called Just Up the 10. It was a story about Power Corps line workers who have stickers on their helmets that say up the 10, and it was to help keep them safe. The premise being that 90% of our time, our thoughts are in the past or in the future, and 10% of our time, our thoughts are in the present. So the up the 10 was to remind them to up the 10, be in the present when you're out there working on the lines, keep yourself safe. put your focus on the work that you're doing at hand. So I use that a lot for when especially when I'm walking, it seems. So I'll go out and I'll notice that I'm thinking about the workday or what I have to do tomorrow or what's happening tonight or whatever else. And I'm missing out on all the nourishment of just my walk, of being outdoors, um, receiving all that from my senses. So when I do notice that, I'm up to 10. So it's my mantra. So that might be one that's useful to you, or you might find your own mantra. So I hope you have a great rest of the day. I'd like to thank you for taking the time and for being here, taking time for yourself. Again, I hope you walked away with a little something. And I'd like to thank Brain Injury Canada for inviting me. And I hope that you will also thank yourselves for being here.